an affair. So let's dive into what to expect emotionally. You know, when we discover that a partner's had an affair, it really does create an awful lot of different kinds of emotions all at once. And it doesn't matter whether this happens to men or women. Generally, the emotional impact is quite similar. It depends a lot on what your personality is like, what the relationship is like, how long you've been in the relationship, the circumstances of the affair, how you found out about the affair. So those things do come into play when it comes to how you're going to react emotionally. The usual one is, the first thing is shock and disbelief. It's just completely, how could this possibly be happening? We've been together 35 years. I thought we were really happy. He told me he loved me. So when an affair is discovered, oftentimes the first thing is shock and disbelief. It can be hard to let the information actually absorb, just questioning, is this really happening? Like, it seems like a nightmare, especially if you felt like your relationship was in a good place, if you thought that you were getting on really well, if you thought that things were running quite smoothly, that if those things were happening prior to you discovering the affair, you can bet that it is so breathtaking, you're completely disoriented. Shock and disbelief can stay with you for quite a long time. That can happen for months and months, and depending on how long your relationship was, it can even go on for over a year. Obvious emotions that come up during this early stage are feelings of anger and betrayal. So anger and betrayal, of course, are really prevalent emotions in this. How could you do this to me? Women often feel really deeply wounded and hurt, and the breach of trust is something that women talk about all of the time. Will I ever be able to trust anybody ever again? Or I don't even trust myself anymore. How did I not see this? This can lead to lots of really, really intense anger towards the unfaithful partner, and of course the person who they had the affair with. Something that surprises me often is people are generally more angry with the person who their partner had the affair with than they are with their partner, which I find intriguing, because your partner is the one who holds the responsibility for the relationship. Your partner is the one who is doing the deception and the lying and the secrecy, not the person necessarily who they're having a fling with. So it always does surprise me, I must admit, when people are more angry with the person who their partner has had an affair with than they are with their actual partner. Once anger and betrayal have kind of bubbled up to the surface, they come and go. So there's periods of time during what is a grief process where anger will come up and it'll settle down, anger will come up and it'll settle down. And in those settled periods of time, sadness and grief can take a really strong hold. Discovering that your partner's having an affair can lead to just profound sadness and a sense of loss. Mourning a relationship that you believed you knew, and a person who you believed you understood, and they understood you, and they love you, and they would never hurt you. The devastation of the emotional intimacy being completely lost, and that lack of trust being front and center all of the time. So oftentimes the grief and loss isn't just about, they've had an affair, which is deeply distressing. It is, especially if it's later in life, if you're over 40, 45, 50, even in your 60s, and sometimes I get women in their 70s who will say to me, it isn't just that the relationship is gone, because that's bad enough, but we were ready to have a new chapter. Maybe the kids are grown up, maybe we'd decided to retire soon and we were going to go travel together. This was supposed to be our time, and now they have chosen to have an affair after we've done all of the hard work. So there can be deep sadness, not just around the fact that a partner's had an affair, but also around the loss of what you believed was coming next, how the story was going to continue on. The next feelings, which are quite prevalent for women, and the ones that most women struggle when they talk to me about, is a sense of humiliation and shame. Women oftentimes will internalize the affair, and they will feel humiliation and shame. They question their worth. Why didn't they love me enough to not do this? Don't they like me anymore? Am I not desirable enough anymore? and it's an internal story of what's wrong with me, this really impacts, that self-love, self-worth, and confidence. And, women also feel like, who else knew? Who else knew this? Then I didn't, but other people did, especially in smaller communities where people do know, but they don't say anything. So it can be so incredibly humiliating to know that other people knew what was going on and you didn't. When these feelings come up, some of the biggest things are confusion and self-doubt. What are we going to do now? What's going to happen now? Why did they have this affair? Why did this come up at this point in our relationship? Could I have done something different? Could they have done something different? Why didn't they talk to me? So there's a lot of internal questions, a lot of dialogue around, why is this all going on? It's really challenging. And why did I not see it? Self-doubt can really become extremely debilitating, leaving you very, very, very disoriented. I know that during this time, women will say to me, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't think straight, I can't focus, I cry all the time. So those times, when we're trying to get on with life, maybe we have kids, maybe we've got to work, maybe we don't want other people to know just yet. And so we're trying to push through all of these really challenging thoughts and feelings. What happens as we come through the realization, things start to sink in and we start to think about, oh my gosh, this is really real. This has happened. They've done this. Perhaps they're telling you that, hey, I don't want to try and work this out with you. I want to actually leave. Or, I've been unhappy for a really long time and this is exactly where I need to be right now. When those conversations start to happen, fear and insecurity really take over. The fears about the future, will we be able to work this out? Are they going to just go? What about the home that we have built together, the family we've raised together? What's going to happen to me? Where am I going to live? How am I going to manage financially? And of course, in relationships that are very long-term relationships, our financials can be super intertwined. And, we may have started to be part-time, or maybe we've stopped working. And so now we're in a position where, or maybe we were getting ready to retire, and now all of a sudden we have to seriously start thinking about, how am I going to earn some money and how am I going to look after myself? Looking into the future can be one of the most devastating, challenging things post-affair. And also, of course, how am I going to move forward and trust anybody ever again in my life? So the fear and insecurity about the future becomes really, really emotionally distressing and overwhelming, wondering about what next, what is going to happen now. Women also want to know answers. They want to know what happened. So they will ask a lot of questions generally to their partner who's had the affair. I want to know why you chose this person. Awful questions like, what was the sex life with this person? Please try not to ask those questions. They are very painful. If a partner tells you, you may think to yourself that you want to know, but trust me when I tell you, you do not. You do not want to know those kind of intimate details because they will haunt you down the track. And if you try and recover your relationship from this affair, the thoughts of that are going to be so intrusive. So please be mindful about the questions that you ask. But oftentimes women want to know as much as they possibly can about the person. They may even want to confront their partner and the person who they're involved with together in an attempt to understand, what was going on behind this. They may want to actually confront the other person. I really strongly suggest you don't do that. I know the urge to do that can be really high, but going in and trying to talk to the other party can make things really, really, really distressing. Sometimes when a partner's having an affair and they are refusing to leave their wife or their partner, what happens is the person who is having the affair, the other party, the third party, will out the relationship in an attempt to try to get the partner to actually tell their wife and be able to bring out their relationship and legitimize their relationship. So confronting them is really not a good idea. Telling these women what it's really like inside your relationship or letting them know what to expect down the line, they don't care. They really don't. So please be mindful if you are thinking about confronting somebody who has had an affair with your partner, because that can be very distressing. Oftentimes women do this because they're looking for closure. They want to know everything and anything, and they think that if they know, they'll be able to move on and it'll be okay. I'm going to tell you that it won't help. Knowing why does not take away the pain of it all. Even if they tell you exactly why they had an affair, it is not going to stop the pain that you're feeling. You're going to have lots of mixed emotions. You're going to have moments of anger and frustration, then moments of sadness and distress. You're going to go in between those feelings a lot. It is really an emotional whirlwind. And as we're moving through all these things, the last thing we want to do is make really big decisions. We kind of have to get really into the present moment, stay where we're at, and start to look at, how do I move on from this? Do we try and resolve it? Do we try and make this relationship work? Or is it too much? Can we not do that? Are we going to have to dissolve this relationship? There isn't a typical reaction. I said this in one of the earlier videos. People assume that if they find out about an affair, they will respond in a very specific way. That isn't my experience. When an affair happens, you will be so confused and so disoriented that you may act in ways that you never thought you would. There's no typical way of responding. It's about your own personal coping mechanisms. It's about your personality. The most important thing is that you seek support. Now, be careful where you get your support from. A trusted friend who isn't going to take sides is a good person. Children, whether they're adult children or younger children, are not a good place to talk about this. A therapist is a good place. A coach is a good place. Somebody who is a third party, who is separate to the situation, who can help you as you start to navigate this situation. It is my experience that women will be in this stage, this emotional upheaval stage, for between 3 to 6 months, depending on how long that relationship was, and depending on how aware they may have been that there might have been an affair. If it has come completely out of the blue, it's going to knock you off your feet. So just be incredibly patient with yourself. Many women will say to me, when will the pain stop? When will it stop hurting? It will stop when it stops. If you have loved somebody for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years, when a relationship hits one of these particular bumps, an affair, then the bottom line is it will hurt as long and as intensely as you loved. And so you have to expect that if you loved it deeply and you cared deeply for 40 years, you are going to feel a lot of pain and a lot of distress.